What we mean by sexual orientation is the definition of who somebody is attracted to physically or romantically.
Yes. When we're talking about sexual orientation, it's about a person's attraction to another person, whether that's same sex, opposite sex, or actually even no attraction.
It won't be long till I'm gonna meet somebody to lean on.
So we all have a sexual orientation. That includes people who are heterosexual or straight, and of course people who are asexual, which means that you have no sexual attraction to another person.
We tend to get confused with defining a person's sexual orientation based on their partner, and actually it's an individual's identity. So it's really important we talk about sexual orientation, that it's the individual identity versus the external factors.
It's an intrinsic part of who we are, and of course it dictates to a certain extent who we might love, who we might spend our lives with. And when you think about minority groups from a sexual orientation perspective, that can also mean that there's perhaps a political or activist element to it, because it really shapes the way that you see and engage with the world around you.
There are lots of different things that make up our identity. Some of them are visible and some of them are invisible. But what's really important to acknowledge here is that we can each place different relevance and different levels of importance on aspects of our identity.
For me, it's a core part of who I am. You know, we love these labels in our world and societies, and I know there are lots of folks who are kind of like, just throw away the labels. And yet there's something about claiming, this is who I am, this is what I stand for, this is what I'm about.
We've been told that we're wrong, or there's something wrong with us and we need to fix it. And I think that's why we especially hold it in so much importance, because we finally found acceptance for ourselves, and we want to be able to celebrate that and be proud of ourselves.
I mean, I wish sexual orientation didn't have to be important to anyone's personal identity. I think I spent a lot of my life trying to work out exactly why it mattered and why it ended up influencing your life and becoming an intrinsic part of yourself, because as someone who's asexual, it's like I don't really have a sexual orientation. So what does that mean if it is supposed to be so central to who you are?
I think that sexual orientation is so important to how we identify ourselves, partly because, you know, we live in a society where we're quite often defined by our relationships. And also we live in a very heteronormative society, right? We have this certain expectation of you'll meet a person of the opposite sex, you'll get married, you'll have children, and you'll live happily ever after. Whilst we maybe appreciate that that's not everybody's journey, the fact is that the world around us still very much gives that narrative to us.
There's a term, heteronormativity, and what that relates to is our implicit assumption that a heterosexual identity is the default or the norm within society. It's the preferred mode almost.
Yeah, so people come before work, after work, or even during lunch as well. Okay. We want to try and make the environment so it's much more enjoyable rather than a chore. Yeah. Yeah, and we hope that works for you as well.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Great, okay. I just need to get a few more details from you, if that's all right. It's the 3 months couple trial membership, is that correct?
Yes, please. Excellent. And it says in here there's a free gift for my partner.
Yeah, that's correct. It's a £50 beauty voucher treatment for the special lady in your life. It's redeemable if you decide to join after the trial period.
Okay. Have you got an alternative to this?
Trust me, they're very popular with the ladies. Look, I guarantee you show her that voucher, she'll be all over you, mate.
Yeah, it's my husband I'll be joining with.
Your what?
My husband. Not that he can't have a beauty treatment, it's just this seems a bit more geared to women.
Sorry, that's the gift.
When you sit outside of what's seen as societal norm, I guess, it then becomes a huge part of your identity. You're constantly coming up against barriers, challenges, stigmas, assumptions based on that identity and the fact that it's different to the average person that you're probably operating with.
If you aren't straight, if you are lesbian, gay or bisexual, for example, you will actually be in a position where you'll be able to recognise that your own personal identity is not being acknowledged in this conversation, in the way that people relate to one another. And because it's not being acknowledged or recognised, you then have a choice to make about whether you reveal that aspect of your identity. So it becomes more of a dilemma for people who are not straight.
And I don't think sometimes they mean it nastily. I think we're all just programmed to say stuff, and they will automatically assume if I say I've got a partner, they'll think it's a man. You know, they won't think it's a woman.
Okay, so if a woman joins with a male partner, what does he get?
It doesn't work like that, sir. Have you not got a sister or someone else you can choose a voucher?
I haven't.
People are normally fine with it.
Are you seriously telling me you've never come across this before?
Well, it's not always me here, but no, not to my knowledge.
I'm not okay with that.
I'm sorry, sir, but that's a free gift, and I don't know what else to say to you.
Do you know what? Keep your voucher and your trial membership.
We see pride celebrated at a corporate level. We see more and more celebrations popping up in small towns and across the globe, which is an amazing thing to celebrate, absolutely. But we also have to acknowledge that we haven't finished in this journey.
I think people have this perception that gay people are always moaning about their rights, our rights. But most of us, to be truthful, just want to go about our business without getting on our soapbox. But when you come across stupid, thoughtless things like this, you're forced to take a stand. I don't want to come out to the guy at the gym, but I have to, whether I like it or not, just to make my point. We've got a long way to go.
When we learn words that are positive or negative, we can use words in a really inclusive and supportive way. We can also choose to use words as weapons if we want to. And so the way that we choose to form our language really, really matters. When we talk about sexual orientation in particular, there are many terms that anybody would be familiar with that are derogatory terms, but you can also use inclusive language.
We quite often get caught up on the labels of LGBTQIA+, and actually each person's identity within that is very different and can vary hugely as to what they see themselves as, if they identify as a bisexual or trans or non-binary, right? So I tend to use them as a guide versus as hard and fast rule and label. It's why we hear the term queer so much, which for many years has been, you know, a negative word to use, but is sort of being reclaimed as a way of giving that umbrella definition to, I sit somewhere in the LGBTQ plus identity, but I can now pick and choose how much of that I want to share with you.
What I've come to appreciate actually is that acronym, if that's the appropriate term to use for it, is essentially a way of people asserting their own identity, and that's why it keeps growing. And if you look upon it in that way, I don't actually have to understand each letter in that alphabet. I just need to understand that individuals are now finding a way of expressing themselves which is relevant to them.